Hey you guys, welcome back. It's Rashad. And today I want to talk about 5 things that I've noticed that all highly successful people make sure that they include in their budget. Ever since this virus started, there has been a spike in brand new investors, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. Even myself starting off on a new real estate venture, I realized that I had to learn this market very, very quickly because I'm not from Louisiana. So in order to understand how to help people buy and sell in the state of Louisiana, I had to learn a lot very quickly. One of the biggest differences in being a 1099 employee is the fact that you're not getting paid every 2 weeks or every month. Even as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, you get paid for your work. And if you're new to the channel and you're interested in wealth building, increasing your financial literacy, and learning about real estate and investing, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like and share it with one friend because that's exactly the kind of content that I make here on this channel. And make sure you hit that notification bell because I will be dropping a brand new video series very soon and you don't want to miss my road to my first $100,000 through real estate and investing. As I worked to reach my first $100,000, I realized that a lot of the things that I was learning about budgeting and money management would be very helpful to anyone else who wanted to start their own business or just begin the journey of entrepreneurship. If you hate doing math, then I'll drop a link to an app called Mint.com, which is a free personal finance app that will track majority of these things for you. And I'll just put a link in the description below. Now, the very first thing that all highly successful people make sure that they're tracking is how much money they make versus how much money they spend each month. Now, for business owners, this is something that a lot of people refer to as their P&L, which is a profit loss statement. But for the average everyday person, what we need to do is make sure that we are understanding our cost of living versus our income. For most people, we feel like having a lot more income means that we have a lot more money. But in reality, a lot of people do not consider their expenses. For example, if person A makes $250,000 while person B only makes $100,000, most people would assume that person A makes more money. Now, if you take into consideration the cost of living of person A, they could live somewhere like New York, California, or Denver, where the cost of living is essentially very much higher than person B, who may live somewhere like New Mexico, Bali, where the average cost of living is actually south of about $30,000. So now if you compare those two people again, the person A who's making $250,000 in a place like California, that actually is not that much money. But person B who's making $100,000 and is living fairly inexpensively actually has a lot more money to spend and do as they please. For most people, we don't consider how much money we spend a month on housing, our cars, and various expenses that we need to make sure that we're paying for each month. Now, this is the very first thing that all highly successful people make sure that they calculate because it helps them understand their cash flow, which is actually our very second point all highly successful people need to make sure they're keeping track of, and that is their cash flow. Now, cash flow, essentially speaking, is just your disposable income. Now, for most people, cash flow has many names, which is things like disposable income or discretionary income or whatever you as an individual would like to call it. Essentially, what this is the money that you have left over each month after paying all of your essential bills. Now, this is actually one of, if not the most important part of this list, for the simple fact that cash flow dictates your lifestyle. For most of us, we utilize our cash flow or our disposable income to do things like go buy a Lamborghini or have dinner with our friends, whichever one you can afford. For most people, our cash flow or that extra money, we don't even pay attention to it because we feel like we've earned the right to go do something leisurely. For most people, we realize that we don't have any money unless we decide that we want to do something. And now we have all of the money that we need to do whatever we want, go on a trip, eat dinner, or just go have a lot of fun because we've had a rough week and we've earned that Saturday night out. In reality, most people don't even realize that the early stages of their lives, majority of their income is very much disposable. And the reason that this is very vital and important to all people, including highly successful people, is because with this cash flow or this disposable income, this is the money that you would use to invest, create your nest egg, and build that safety net before you go out and actually build the life that you would like to live. And that's why I make videos like this, because I realize that there are people out there that are just like me who live fairly inexpensively and have a little bit of money and don't know what to do with it. And for most people, we find ourselves spending money on things that we don't need and buying all these upgrades in life, and then slowly realizing that now we have to work harder to actually sustain that lifestyle. Which actually brings me to the third point, which is make sure that you're aware of lifestyle inflation. Now, lifestyle inflation happens to everyone. So it's not something that you're saying that you're not going to do. It's just something that all highly successful people make sure that they're aware of. And lifestyle inflation is very simple. It's not some numerical thing that you need to calculate. It's just paying attention to the average cost of living that you're currently paying. And as you're making more money, keeping track of how that number is increasing. Now, everyone is guilty of lifestyle inflation. We get paid a little bit and all of a sudden we have to go buy a brand new car, a new house, or something of that nature to showcase that we just made a little bit more money. Because the average American will go out as soon as they get a raise to upgrade their car or something that they didn't like in their life immediately. While a highly successful person tries their hardest to make sure that they're putting off all life upgrades, they will drive the same hoopty car that they've had since high school until it completely stops running and then buy a new car. I'm not saying that you have to drive around in a bucket and live in a box, but I'm saying that the amount of money that you make now, the moment that you get an upgrade, the first thing that you should consider is actually putting some of that money aside, which is actually hard for most people because they aren't even tracking the amount of money they're spending each month versus how much money they're making. When they get a promotion or a pay raise, they don't even realize that they are making a difference in their money. They just know that that base amount of income has changed. And lifestyle inflation is a very steady creep. For most people, we gradually just make more money as we get older because our lives require that we work harder and do more. And subconsciously, we feel like because we're working harder, we need to buy better things. Because for most people, the moment they get that better paying job and they move from $7.25 to maybe like $10, they realize that now it's time to start eating out more, they can upgrade their wardrobe or do something of that nature. And let's take college students, for example. This is the time of your life where you're allowed to be poor. And the moment you graduate and you get a job, the first thing that most college students want to do is buy an expensive apartment or a brand new car. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because we all want a new car and a better place to live and things of that nature. But with lifestyle inflation is every time you get paid and you decide to upgrade a little bit of your life, you're not actually taking time to acknowledge the fact that you're not saving any amount of money. So you can continually do this. If you only make $40,000 a year and spend $35,000, the moment you start to make $50,000, you start to spend $45,000. By the time you start making $100,000 or $250,000, you will soon realize that your cost of living is very close to the amount of money that you're making each month. Because if you continue to upgrade your life every time you get paid and make a little bit more money, then soon you'll realize that you can't upgrade your career any further and your cost of living is very close to the amount of money that you make. And the reason that this is a problem, because take this virus, for example. What happens if you were to stop working for a few months before any help arrives and you hadn't actually stopped to take into consideration that you don't have an emergency fund or any money set aside? And lifestyle inflation happens to all of us. No matter who you are going to upgrade your life. The difference between the average American and a highly successful person is that they acknowledge that it's happening. Which actually brings me to our fourth point, which is making sure that you're living below your means. Now, this isn't me telling you that you have to go live in a box and drive a hoopty for the rest of your life. This is simply saying that you want to spend less money than you actually make. And a lot of this really seems like, Rashad, we don't need you to tell us this, we know. But you'd be surprised with statistics like 2/3 of Americans not being able to afford a $400 emergency being a national statistic because people are spending as much money as they make on a consistent basis. And the reason that I think that living below your means is very important and is a very key factor of all highly successful people is because with pop culture teaching us that you need to be 19, 20, or 21 with a big house and a 6-car California garage and a Lamborghini in the driveway, it's distorting our perception of reality. When the truth is that being in your 20s is the only time that you're allowed to be poor. Your early 20s is a very foundational period in your life because this is the only time in your life where you're allowed to do things like be a broke college student. This is the only time where it's acceptable to sleep on your friend's couch, to have roommates, to drive that ugly car, and not be expected to live a $1 million lifestyle. Because for me, it's more acceptable to be 23, 24, 25, sleeping on your friend's couch or having a roommate than it is to be 40 or 50, sleeping on your friend's couch or living with your mom and having a roommate. And when it comes to being a highly successful person living below their means, it's not that you're intentionally living a poor and low income lifestyle. It's more that you're focused on spending money on assets than you are on liabilities. And if you've read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, then Robert Kiyosaki defines an asset as anything that puts money in your bank account, while a liability is anything that removes money from your bank account. If you're wondering what all would fall into an asset column, it can be things like real estate, which could be your house because you're building equity, things like an investment account, buying index funds, individual stocks, bonds, and CDs, and things of that nature. While liabilities can also be things like your house, your car, or any other debt that you have. And in making sure that you're buying more assets than you are liabilities, the fifth thing that all highly successful people make sure they're tracking is their net worth. I know most people, including myself, do not think about what their net worth actually is, because when we hear things like net worth, we automatically think of people like Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z and Beyonce, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos, who's worth almost $1 trillion and makes $3,000 a second. But in reality, your net worth is all encompassing of your debt, your income, and all accounts that you actually have that have money in them. For most people, we don't even actually think of what net worth actually means, because when I used to read it, I used to assume that that's how much money that they had. When in reality, the formula for net worth is subtracting the amount of assets that you have from the amount of liabilities that you have. For example, if you have $50,000 in the bank right now, including your savings accounts, your brokerage accounts, or any other accounts that you have, not including your personal items that can be considered assets like your home, and subtract that from things that you owe, like let's say you have $100,000 in student debt, your net worth would actually be a negative $50,000. Now, to avoid confusion and doing all of that math, the easiest way to do that would be to download that mint.com app that I have, and it will calculate that for you. Your net worth is something that if you actually focus on and make it a point to increase it on a day-to-day basis, even if it's something simple like getting it to $15,000, then you realize that your personal financial life actually becomes a lot easier. Tracking things like your net worth, if you ever decide that you want to be a homeowner, your DTI is something that all banks actually look at when they're trying to approve you for a loan on top of your credit history. And DTI is simply your debt to income ratio, which is how much of that debt that you're actually paying each month versus how much money do you make in a month. And I understand that a lot of people do not want to write out their own budget. When I first started this, I had an entire Excel sheet dedicated to my income and my expenses. And if you just start with considering those 5 simple things that all highly successful people make sure that they're tracking when they're budgeting, then you will see a major change in your personal finances. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like if you haven't already. And make sure that you hit that notification bell so that you will be notified whenever a new video is released. And if you like this video and want to know more about personal finance, wealth building, and understanding real estate and investing, then make sure you check out any of our other videos that we have in this channel. I'll drop a few of them in the description below, and you should see some pop up on the screen to help you direct to what video you should watch next. And make sure you stay tuned for all of the awesome videos that we'll be releasing to teach you more about money management, real estate, investing, and simple wealth building.